you are, again, concerned that the establishing the no-fly zone, waste of time.
Waste of time, waste of money, gets us involved in another neo-colonial position in the Middle East we shouldn't be in.
What if it works? What if Gaddafi goes down in 10 days?
Okay, what if Gaddafi goes down in 10 days? Because that would be great, you know, he'd be gone, but I'm sure we'll be here in a month saying, hey, what about the rebels who went into whatever ethnic tribes group and they killed all the women and children in some village?
But we're not talking. That's hypothetical. I mean, speaking.
You're going to watch it happen.
Okay, but answer Ben's question now, which is, what if Gaddafi goes and none of that stuff happens?
Hey, if Gaddafi goes and none of that stuff happens, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, and then would you have said, well, maybe, you know, I was wrong about the no-fly zone?
No. I'm not going to say I'm wrong about the no-fly zone. Why? I mean, look, is Gaddafi a dictator? Does he kill his own people? Yeah. So do hundreds of other rulers in the world.
Right. Specifically on that continent as well.
On that continent. But in Asia, in, you know,
no, but I mean,
anywhere you're going to go.
The indiscriminate bombing, the administration says, the indiscriminate bombing of your own cities and your own civilians was what prompted this, and what makes it different than Egypt, what makes it different than Yemen, what makes it different than all these other places, that this is not going to be the precedent, that those are really the precedent.
I don't know. I never saw the administration giving a shit about what happened in the Congo or Ivory Coast or anywhere else.
They would argue that this is a place in that Libya, first of all, Robert Gates admitting that no, this was not a national security threat in any way, but it's a region that is that's of vital interest to the United States.
Because there's oil.
And therefore, we were prompted to act, although you read what Robert Gates said, and it seems pretty clear that this guy did not think this was a good idea, and got on board because that's what you do.
Well, I mean, you've been reading the papers for a week, and everyone's like, who's in charge? Who the hell launches a war and you don't know what you're going to do, what your aims are, or who's in charge?
Doesn't that seem
like insane?
Okay, but I mean, that's because Republicans have been saying that, but don't we know who's in charge? We were, and now we've handed it over to NATO.
Okay, what are the goals?
So that's the issue, is that what happens now is it's clearly succeeded to this point. Let me rephrase that. There's been a great deal of success to this point. We stopped the butchering of civilians, and the rebels, who seem like the least structured organization in the history of modern warfare, they have pushed back, and now, but what happens now, almost worse than if Gaddafi leaves, is what happens if there's a stalemate? What happens now if we reach a point?
There won't be a stalemate.
There won't be a stalemate?
I don't think so. Look, as soon as we walk away, if Gaddafi is still standing and has a military, they'll crush these guys.
That's what I mean by stalemate, is that he hasn't gone away.
Right.
Gaddafi has held fast to a small area around Tripoli, around the capital. The rebels are outside the capital. And then what?
My guess
right now it is a stalemate in a sense, because he's still
well,
there. He's still controlling the capital. But
it won't be for long.
Yeah, he's
it
on
won't
his
be
heels.
for long. The reality is, once they've opened the box, you know, of violence, they have to pursue him and take him down, because if they don't, he's already blown up an aircraft
they didn't do that with
over Scotland, and he's already vowed he's going to get revenge and everything.
And that goes back to something Ben asked earlier, and you were talking about earlier, and comparing Congo and everything. I mean, there's a chip on our shoulder about what this guy has done to Americans. You know, going back to 1988 and Lockerbie, and that never goes away, and I don't think that has ever gone away, and I think that is, you know, going to be used as further justification for having done this, because it's American lives versus what's going on in Zimbabwe or the Congo is not necessarily affecting. I mean, I'm not using that excuse. I'm saying that's an excuse that's going to be used.
I'm really interested in the idea of some degree of stalemate, that we have made all this progress, that the airstrikes have worked, that the no-fly zone and the airstrikes have worked to a point, but Gaddafi manages to hold around Libya. You think that at some point we can't just say, okay, that's it.
It's not a matter of saying that's it. It's whether we want it or not. That's what. It's the same way people say, oh, we're never going to have ground troops. Of course you're going to have ground troops.
Because you're saying you can't have the stalemate. If he's there, you're going to have to pursue him.
Yes, they'll pursue him.
And also, all of his military leaders will probably jump ship at a certain point, or a lot of his military leaders will jump ship at a certain point and sort of leave him stranded as well, as we've seen happen in other countries there. So
war takes on a relentless logic of its own once you start it.
So if a true line in the sand exists, you think there's just almost a guarantee, or you think it's likely that we'll have to have some ground troops, unless the airstrikes work and he bolts, he leaves?
I still think somebody will be there. Somebody's going to be there as a trainer, as an advisor, as a rescue. I mean, you've already had troops. You had a rescue team come in and pick up a pilot who got shot down.
Well, you got to do that, right?
No, but what I'm saying is you will start, you know, you just, by inches and yards, you start getting sucked deeper and deeper into it.
Now, is there any chance that you see that we don't get sucked deeper and deeper? Tell me the circumstances under which.
Of course there's a chance.
Yeah.
Of course, if you know, he collapses and falls apart and flees, and then, okay,
yeah,
the rebels win, and then what happens?
Well, and then what happens? Then that's always the next question. But we see what's going to happen in Egypt. We see what's going to happen in Tunisia and perhaps Yemen. And Syria's cabinet resigned today. And you know, I mean, eventually you cede to the people that are looking, you know, to undo your government.